How much more time do I have before Rebirth? Alright, I have a lot to cover and very limited time to do it. Keep in mind, we haven't even gotten to the first game yet! I'll be honest, there is no way I can get all these videos out in time. I'm sorry, I'm just one man with 2 jobs and 3 mouths to feed with only 4 hours a weekday to work on this series, and I had less than 5 weeks to make a series that originally was going to be 6 parts, and now it's probably going to be 7, which is equivalent to the amount of ways I'm but damn it, I will finish this series. May have to change the name though, so hold on to your Buster Swords because there ain't no getting off of this train. Run the intro!
About leaving once, but in the end, I couldn't.
Too dangerous?
Too much. A whole world bursting with life.
Maybe more than I can handle, I think sometimes. Even now.
People hate the steel sky, the slums, but I don't. How could I? All that passion, all those dreams. Flowing and blending together into something greater.
So remember when I said in the last video that the Crisis Saga was coming up next?
That's right, Major, you did!
I lied.
So, I originally had a 20-minute long video about a large chunk of Traces of Two Past and literally couldn't bring myself to edit it because it was just so goddamn boring. So instead of going in depth on nearly every moment in brief detail, I'm just going to hit certain highlights that I feel will have some impact on Rebirth on its release. I'm attempting to condense 20 minutes worth of footage into roughly 6 minutes, so let's begin. We begin in the Sector 5 slums. Aerith's new mom, Elmira, actually comes from a family of gangsters or influential figures. If you've played Final Fantasy VII Original or Remake, I want you to imagine slightly under Don Corneo of Wall Street levels of power, but not evil and far less horny. So keeping secret from Shinra while in such a well-known family would prove impossible despite their best efforts. In Remake, we find out that Biggs, an Avalanche member in both Remake and OG, hails from Sector 5 and is a key benefactor for the orphanage called the Leaf House. Apparently, he met Aerith in 1992, but went as X at the time because he didn't have a name as a baby when he was left at the house. They called him X as a placeholder until they could think of a name, but everyone got used to calling him X, so the name stuck. I bring this up because it seems Biggs has a key role in Rebirth judging from the trailers. Elmira comes to understand that Aerith is a Cetra after Aerith states one night that Clay, Elmira's husband, died. Clay had perished, and in this moment he stood on that precipice where his soul joined the planet, and was given the chance to glimpse the one place in the world he wished to be most. Though Elmira had failed to see Clay, he had undoubtedly seen her. The following evening, Elmira got the letter that Clay had died in a helicopter crash. About a year passes and everyone knows who Aerith is. It's Aerith's 8th birthday, and there's a knock on the door. Aerith answers to see Sung of the Turks. He's come to bring Aerith back to Shinra, which is so much now.
Shinra would like very much for Aerith to help us.
You're wrong! I'm not an ancient!
But Aerith, even when you're all alone, don't you hear voices whispering secrets?
No, never!
But all 3 of us knew that wasn't true.
After Aerith runs upstairs, Elmira manages to convince Sung that Aerith doesn't know anything about the Promised Land. In exchange for letting Aerith live her life with her, once Aerith shows any change, she will let Sung know. Sung agrees. And for the next 14 years, Sung and the Turks will watch over Aerith to ensure no harm ever comes to her. Yeah, there's a reason they retconned this in the remake. We quickly turn our attention to Nibelheim to learn more about our other protagonists, Cloud Strife, born in August of 1986, and Tifa Lockhart, born in May of 1987.
But I'll be fine. You've seen how much ass I can kick?
Tifa Lockhart, my waifu.
Calm down, son. It's just a drawing, not the real thing.
Out of all the children in Nibelheim, Tifa was the only girl. Her friends consisted of 3 boys, Emilio, Lester, and Tyler. Together they were the 4 fiends of Nibelheim. Clad was around, and while he liked being around Tifa, he couldn't stand the other kids. They all lived a rather quiet life, with Tifa learning all things becoming of a woman, like cooking and cleaning and sewing. It's the country, it was a different time. In Nibelheim, the 4 fiends lived together in harmony. But then, everything changed when the Fire Nation attacked. When Tifa lost her mom, Thea, in 1995. Inconsolable, Tifa held on to one piece of hope. There was a tale in town that beyond Mount Nibel was the land of the dead. So young Tifa thought that if she made it, she could see her mother again. One by one, all the other boys turned back, but Cloud kept going to stop Tifa. She lost her footing and fell down the cliff, followed closely by Cloud. While Cloud only got some scrapes, Tifa was in a coma for 7 days. Brian, Tifa's father, came to bring her home. Apparently, all the boys told Brian that Tifa was up on Mount Nibel, and Cloud was encouraging her to keep going.
Wow! Just f***ing back the bus over me, why don't you?
That day, Cloud changed. While it wasn't his fault for what happened to Tifa, he does blame himself for not being strong enough to save her. He never denied the accusations against him for that day. He also began picking fights with kids and adults alike, as well as steering clear of Tifa, if he was able. The Strife family already were the black sheep of the town.
He's what you call a black sheep.
Not yet. Brief history of Cloud's conception. Claudia Strife, Cloud's mom, was a girl that wanted to leave Nibelheim and make her own life, like a progressive woman would, which made all the other women in the village jealous and dislike her for not adhering to the way of the Nibel. A traveler came to town. Claudia was smitten. Careless Whisper was played, and Cloud was born 9 months later. Anyway, it's 1997, and a boy with a big future ahead of him leaves a small country town called Gungaga. His name? Zack Fair. That's it. Nothing else really happened. 1998. Aerith finds out that Elmira was essentially keeping her from working or even leaving the Sector 5 town they reside. Apparently there was a 5-year-long turf war and Aerith was none the wiser. She ended up hearing that Elmira's house was a safe zone on Shinra's orders. After confronting Elmira, she argues with her, runs away toward the Sector 5 church where she runs into Faz, Ivana's old caretaker and the reason they were able to escape Shinra HQ in the first place. Long story short, Faz shows Aerith the church. Faz attempts to kidnap Aerith on some serious child predator crap, even calling Aerith Elfalna, and Faz is shot dead by an unknown bullet. Good riddance, which is obviously sung, keeping Aerith safe. Aerith continues to live her life in Sector 5 rather peacefully for the next 3 years. 1999. Look, I'm gonna be real with y'all, because I like y'all. I'm at a loss for one thing in particular. In the FF7 wiki, it mentions a Turk named Legend in Before Crisis, special episode Legendary Turk. The problem is, I can't find any footage of it, either from the original or the fan-made remake. The episode and Legend are also never seen or brought up again. Gotta be real, I really don't care. And if for some reason it is important, I'll just hold that L. Moving on! May of 1999, Tifa was given a cat named Fluffy for her 12th birthday. This is important. I am not kidding, that cat is way more important than Legend will ever be. See, this cat has a tendency of f***ing off and getting lost on the way to Mount Nibel. One day he went off and Claudia Strife returned him, saying Cloud was the one who found Fluffy, which in turn kept Tifa thinking about Cloud a lot more than she expected she would. And now, welcome to the new millennia, the year 2000. The beginning of the Crisis Saga. One evening, Cloud caught Tifa outside the general store. He stepped in close and whispered, "After dark, up on the water tower." It was here that Tifa was wrought with feelings she couldn't understand, left wondering why Cloud made her so nervous. It wasn't because she had feelings for him, it was because she looked up to him. He was a beautiful, untouchable presence, like one of those countless stars glittering in the distant sky. On that starry night, Cloud tells Tifa that come spring, he's leaving for Midgar. Up to this point, all the boys in town said they were leaving for Midgar in search of fortune. But Cloud wants to go because he wants to join Soldier. He wants to be a hero, just like Sephiroth. Tifa responded entirely on impulse, stating,
"Just promise me one thing. When we're older, and you're a famous soldier, if I'm ever trapped or in trouble, promise you'll come save me."
But once the promise was sealed, it seemed to her a thing of singular importance. She'd come to understand that she did like him, and it was a special kind of like, one that ties up your heart, making you yearn to be with that person for the rest of your days. One by one, all the boys left town. Cloud was the last, leaving early in the morning with only his mother to wish him off. Tifa was left alone, unknowing if she would ever see him again. A little time later, Fluffy ran away. Again, on the way toward the mountain to find him, Tifa meets a man standing in the river. Upon seeing her, the man leaps to stand right in front of her. That man was the martial arts master,
Richard Zangan.
After this interaction, Tifa is terrified of Zangan, literally feeling up her arms to examine her muscle mass. Play the clip.
FBI, open up!
She reasonably runs home. Mayor Xander of Nibelheim then calls a town meeting to introduce Zangan. Zangan then takes them through a workout in the town square. Tifa, reluctant at first, eventually joins in, showing great promise compared to all the other town's members. Zangan noticed this and convinces Tifa to be one of his students. She gives her a booklet with basic techniques to learn, telling her she must practice them every day until his return because she must lead the town in exercising. Tifa is hesitant but does agree. Over time, she will learn from Zangan and his booklets. Every few months, he drops by to check in on who will eventually be his best disciple. For the past year or so, Sephiroth has been hanging out with two other first-class soldiers, Genesis Rhapsodos and Angeal Hewley. All three of them became good friends up to this point, but their friendship took a big hit in late summer of 2000. You see, these three would occasionally sneak into the company training room when all the seconds were out for the day. During a training session, Genesis decides that today is the day he surpasses Sephiroth and proceeds to take this from a sparring session into a no-holds-barred grudge match. Sephiroth begins to match Genesis's intensity, which nearly destroys the training room. Angeal manages to break up the fight, but Genesis still wanted the smoke, leading him to almost smoking himself.
Genesis!
After that fight, Professor Hollander treats Genesis at the infirmary, but Mako has seeped into the wound. For Genesis to heal, he would need a transfusion. And if you've been paying attention to my other videos, which you totally should, you know that Angeal and Genesis share similar cells, making Angeal the only one who can do the transfusion. Quick side note, I also find it heartwarming that Sephiroth didn't even hesitate to help, and was so sad when he couldn't. It's important to note at this point, Genesis is beginning to degrade due to the G cells in his body. The cure is currently a mystery. Unable to find answers under Shinra's watch, they decided to all work together to find a way to stop the degradation for good. Professor Hollander contacts Lazard Desurius, the current director of Soldier. Lazard is actually the illegitimate son of President Shinra, and apparently Lazard wasn't the only one, but that isn't until later. Wanting his revenge for forcing his mom and him to live in the slums, Lazard took up Hollander's offer and would fund his actions under Shinra's noses for the next couple of years. October of 2000, Genesis went missing during a mission in Wutai. Upon his disappearance, a large group of second and third classes deserted along with him. That night, Sephiroth was attacked by Glenn Lodbrok. How this fight ends is not confirmed, but I have reason to believe he survived this encounter. I just don't know how, but plot armor is a strong contender for the reason why. Hollander has also stolen R&D documents and research before going into hiding. And now, the stage is set for a key figure in the entire Final Fantasy VII canon. Zack Fair.
Settle down. Zack the puppy.
Showing your back to the enemy. Overconfidence will destroy you.
Those soldier people are kind of weird.
Contact Sephiroth.
Zack can handle it.
feeling it.
What is your dream? To become first? Is it?
No. To become a hero.
Mid-October into November of 2000, Wutai troopers have infiltrated Midgar and taken over a train. In response, a soldier operative is sent in to take control of the train as it is redirected towards Sector 8. This operative is none other than...
Soldier Second Class Zack on the job!
After defeating the Wutai imposters as well as slaying a behemoth near the Sector 8 square, Zack lets his guard down, only to be held up by Sephiroth. Zack is no match for Sephiroth considering that he is him. Luckily, Angeal, now Zack's mentor, manages to save him before the final blow. With a few inputs on his phone, the world collapses around them, revealing this was all a training exercise, Sephiroth included. After showing Zack that he still has much to learn, he leaves him with some advice.
Embrace your dreams.
Huh?
If you want to be a hero, you need to have dreams. And honor.
Okay. It is officially November, and Zack is now finally given his first big assignment. Along with Angeal, Zack is tasked with ending the Wutai War in a single night. It's all hands on deck now. Two teams are split. Sephiroth with B Unit is the distraction to lure Wutai warriors away from their HQ. Angeal of A Unit will prevent any from returning inside, while Zack infiltrates to take down the ones inside. Angeal recommends Zack for first class, making him one step closer to being a hero. On the path to Wutai HQ Fort Tamblin, Angeal drops some history of his past, referring to dumb apples in his hometown of Benora. Dumb apple trees bear fruit at random times during the year. Doesn't matter the season, so the town refers to them affectionately as dumb apples. Angeal claims that he's sharing this information for no particular reason, saying,
"No story is not worth hearing."
But I see it as Angeal is reaching out to Zack in order to plant seeds for a future confrontation. Angeal has a story. With his secret plan to leave Shinra behind, his narrative will inevitably be erased to hide information that Shinra needs to keep secret. Honor is very important to Angeal. No one has yet to leave Shinra and live to see old age. Zack will be sent to end Angeal. He knows this, but he wants to die with honor, and his legacy to live on. So anyway, murder! Zack single-handedly takes down Fort Tamblin and meets the Wutai leader's daughter, Yuffie Kisaragi, inside. Only 9 at the time, Zack convinces Yuffie she has won the day, making her run off victorious. Zack then proceeds to win the day, until he doesn't. We then see what will become a consistent problem with Zack, letting his guard down. It's shocking how often this happens, but then again, he is still a teenager, ever restless and constantly moving. Like a puppy. Funny how he wants to be a hero, yet is often the one being saved. Speaking of saves, Angeal comes in to stop Zack from being a blood splatter on the wall. With the day won and the director impressed, the group is attacked by non-Wutai enemies. Zack is tasked with keeping Director Lazard safe while Angeal holds them off. But the moment they're gone, Angeal disappears. In his place is the summoned Ifrit. Ifrit goes in for the kill on Zack because he let his guard down, again, but is saved by Sephiroth this time.
What the f was that?
Sephiroth then reveals that the enemies they've been fighting are actually copies of Genesis. You see, G cells have the ability to absorb genetic traits and transfer them onto others. Genesis appears to have done this with the soldier operatives that deserted, but he still suffers degradation. Angeal is the only one that can do this with no degradation on his part, unless it's multiple people. Genesis and Angeal are declared traitors of Shinra. December of 2000, Rufus Shinra is declared vice president of Shinra Inc. He then departs on a long-term business trip, which we'll get into later. In the same month, Zack and Sung of the Turks are tasked with searching the hometown of Angeal and Genesis in Benora. Zack must convince Angeal and Genesis to surrender or kill them. Sung must find out what happened to the Turks sent earlier to investigate and ensure that any Shinra secrets are never discovered. Zack meets Angeal's mother, Jillian, the woman who was the main component of Project G. We learn from her the origins of the Buster Sword. While it is heavily hinted at later in Crisis Core that Hollander is Angeal's real father, the man who raised Angeal was responsible for the sword. Angeal wanted to leave to join Shinra in Soldier, so the man took out a huge loan to have a weapon made. He collapsed and died from overwork trying to pay off the debt. The sword is more of a symbol of the Hewley family honor, so Angeal will rarely use it.
You know, I've never actually seen you use that. Don't you think it's sort of a waste?
Use brings about wear, tear, and rust. And that's a real waste.
10 years later.
Okay, fair point. Genesis has laid waste to the entire town, including the Turks that arrived before Sung. Because of their deaths, Sung will now have to look for more Turk operatives. And boy does he get them. Genesis even goes as far as killing his own parents because he knows the truth of his birth. Zack still thinks at least Angeal can be saved. But thanks to Angeal, Genesis escapes with Angeal following behind. Their minds are made up. An airstrike is called in to wipe Benora off the map. Zack attempts to save Jillian, but it's too late. Angeal leaves after stating,
"My mother could not continue to live, and neither can her son."
What is happening?
Again, it's like poetry, so if they rhyme, every stanza kind of rhymes with the last one.
Genesis shortly follows suit, leaving Zack with one phrase that will ring in his head for years.
We are monsters. We have neither dreams nor honor.
With Genesis gone, the airstrike commences, leaving Benora lost to history and smoldering in ash. January of 2001. The war is over. Wutai has called for ceasefire. Shinra has won the war, and over time, Wutai will turn from a proud, independent nation to a tourist attraction for the world to see. To some, it is a fate worse than death. Upon the ashes of defeat, Avalanche is formed by planetologists in Cosmo Canyon. Planetologists are the ones who know the truth of how the planet operates and the life stream. Avalanche establishes themselves in Wutai considering Wutai lost the war. Not to mention, anti-Shinra sentiment is on the rise considering Mako production increased during the war but did not decrease after the war. Problem is, people have gotten too comfortable having excess energy, so reliance on Mako is only increased to what is believed to be a necessity. Such an unrealistic problem, am I right? Avalanche is run by 3 people. A scientist named Fujito, Elf, a woman with amnesia who is very powerful, and Shears, who is Elf's second in command. Now begins the story of Before Crisis, and I am making an executive decision. Before Crisis was a mobile game for the flip phone. Millennials and pre-2000 Gen X know exactly what a flip phone is. Razor brand for life. This game followed the Turks and allowed people to play moments leading up to the original FF7 as different members of the Turks. And for some reason, they were all named after their choice in weaponry, like rod and shotgun. One of these moments includes the Nibelheim Incident, which has the Turk you control in that moment as opposed to the Turk in canon. I'm going to try my best to find where the Turk player, shotgun, is used and when they aren't, so bear with me. Now, on to Before Crisis. It's Shotgun's first day on the job. Song tasks her with the boring job of patrol of Sector 8. At this time, Avalanche has infiltrated Midgar with plans to blow up Mako Reactor 8. With backup from who my wife calls sexy anime man Reno, Shotgun manages to make it inside the reactor to stop the bomb from being set. Meanwhile, Shears shows up at the entrance to beat up Reno and Shotgun soon after. Their lives are spared as Shears is given orders to head to Junon at once, where President Shinra currently is there for a conference speech. Shotgun and Reno arrive to save President Shinra and get him to the conference, but power is lost stopping his speech, making this whole section of gameplay worthless. Avalanche manages to take control of Junon's cannon and aims it at Midgar, which is physically impossible.
It does not turn!
But through some trickery and disguises, President Shinra is left alone in his office, allowing Fujito to shoot the president. And this is actually mentioned in Final Fantasy VII Remake.
We are currently investigating whether they belong to the same group that made the attempt on your life.
President Shinra survives the bullet and manages to get a hold of Junon and Midgar's best hope, Sephiroth. Shotgun manages to get to the cannon, but Sephiroth had already managed to kill the guards and stop the cannon from firing. Elf, the leader of Avalanche, arrives and manages to corner Shotgun. Sephiroth swoops in and with a single slice, Elf blocks the attack, which not many people can do. Elf retreats, and the Turks are now left with the fact that Avalanche is not something to take lightly. March of 2000. With soldiers severely down in numbers, Turks are tasked with finding new soldier members, willing or unwilling. Shotgun, Reno, and Rude, the Turk who is calm and collected and fights with fists of fury, go to Costa del Sol to round up more. Shotgun checks in on one cell on the ship to find all of them killed with just one remaining, Azul, who will be a big threat in Dirge of Cerberus. Shotgun manages to nearly defeat him, but Rude is the one who puts Azul in his place. Meanwhile, Shears arrives in Costa del Sol to board the ship, free the soldier captives, candidates, and is confronted on the beach by both Reno and Rude. Shears escapes after losing to their teamwork, which is bullshit. He literally just runs off on an open beach, but whatever. Azul, having escaped, returns because he wants to join Soldier and to get stronger and defeat Shotgun in combat. A few days later, a new recruit has finished basic training in the Shinra army and now makes his way to Midgar. Quick side note, I forgot to mention that Deep Ground was created around the same time as the Shinra headquarters in 1976. Around the new millennia, it went from being a medical center for Soldier into a prison for experimentation. Its purpose was to replace current Soldier with more powerful, more loyal operatives. April of 2001. During the Soldier Recruitment Initiative, a young girl named Shelk was taken from her sister after showing signs of an ability known as SND, or Synaptic Net Dive. It's an ability that allows you to go into people's minds to share memories or even alter memories and emotions. Also, in time, Shelk will learn to virtual dive into the worldwide network. Think deep dive in Cyberpunk. She was recruited for Soldier, but President Shinra wanted her for Deep Crown, so the Restrictors, the Wardens of Deep Crown, were sent to intercept the transport and bring her back to Mako Reactor 0 for years of experimentation. Above ground, Angeal and Genesis are declared killed in action. Zack is left hollow as he is promoted to Soldier First Class, during which research and science documents have been stolen from the archives. Reno and Rude are sent to investigate. After Zack is tasked with finding Genesis and Angeal and eliminating them, Genesis forces begin attacking Shinra HQ, during which Newman, the head system administrator, reprograms security defenses so he can escape with the stolen documents, having been bribed by Hollander. Reno, Rude, Sung, Zack, and a Turk named Cisne meet in the town square.
So now we're outsourcing to the Turks.
Soldiers being stingy.
There's a manpower shortage. Done.
Reno and Rude are sent to find Newman and the stolen documents. Cisne continues patrolling Sector 8 with Zack following behind. He defeats a Genesis copy. Cisne contemplates how amazing it would be to have wings. Zack retorts that to have wings makes you a monster. But Cisne argues,
Wings symbolize freedom for those who have none. They don't symbolize monsters.
Reno and Rude find Newman and he spills the beans that Hollander is in Mako Reactor 5, and Genesis was seen entering Mako Reactor 5 shortly after. Sephiroth and Zack are tasked with eliminating Genesis and Angeal but intend to fail.
For real?
Yes, for real.
Awesome! We're gonna fail!
Upon arrival, they discover a lab where Genesis and Angeal's origins are somewhat revealed. Genesis and Sephiroth have an encounter where Genesis reveals that while at one point he wanted to surpass Sephiroth, his new goal is the gift of the goddess. I'll go more in depth about that later. Genesis is always talking about this shit.
Infinite in mystery, fates are cruel.
Of the
there are
goddess.
no dreams.
We
No
sit
honor
thus
remains.
journey in my own.
And I've decided that I want to die.
Zack chases Hollander only to be stopped by Angeal. Reluctant to fight, Zack attempts to convince Angeal that his wings are that of an angel, not a monster. But much like Sephiroth, all this angel wants to be is human. With a shockwave, Angeal sends Zack to the slums below with a crash. There, he is then awoken by a beautiful sound.
Hello?
Aerith and Zack, a fated meeting that still holds significant weight since the original Crisis Core's release in 2006. For some reason, this bed of flowers in this church is safer than an industrial-sized crash pad. The flowers seen in the bed are yellow lilies, meant to symbolize not only nature in an industrial world, but Aerith herself and reunion. To thank Aerith for waking him up, Zack offers her one date, which Aerith rejects. Initially. Zack suggests to Aerith that she should sell her flowers considering they're a commodity nowadays, after which Aerith offers to help Zack get back to the train to get to the top plate. After catching a kid who stole Zack's wallet,
there was only a little money in there to begin with. I didn't spend any.
One wallet. Is the money still inside? Whoa! That's way more than I have.
Again, bullshit. Zack and Aerith go on a date. Zack buys Aerith her signature bow, which she will use to house the white materia gifted from her mother. Now here's where the Zack and Aerith shippers begin sharpening their pitchforks. Let's talk about Aerith and Zack's relationship real quick. These two are each other's first loves. Both are 16 going on 17. Yes, that was a Sound of Music reference, thank you for asking. And they start to date in April of 2001 and will last see each other September 28th, 2002. So 1 year and 5 months. Because of how well their energies resonate with each other, a lot of fans, myself included, thought that the two were meant to be together with circumstances tearing them apart. Aerith helps Zack find more humanity in an inhumane time with everything that is happening. It's just fight after fight. After all, that is a soldier's job, and in her own words,
they fight. And they love it.
On the other side, Zack is a very outgoing person. A show-off, sure, but he has a loving heart, a natural protective nature, and always sees the best in others. Zack was the one who got Aerith out of her comfort zone. Aerith says that she's afraid of the sky, which we now know is not just the sky, but also a metaphor for boundless freedom. She's never been topside since her escape from Shinra, so the sky is foreign and scary to her. And while Zack offers to go with her one day, Aerith will ultimately do it alone. The reason why I say all this is because while Zack and Aerith's relationship is cute and honest, it's very young. In FF7 proper, I'll go more in depth, but all I'm saying for now is, don't get used to this ship. In more ways than one, it wasn't built to last. So anyway, this date is cut short by work.
Zack, return to the Shinra building now. Genesis has attacked us.
What a cock blocker! Zack makes it to the top plate and is joined by Angeal, who states that he is conflicted. We know now that Angeal knows of his origins, and while he hates Shinra for that, the dreams and honor he holds so dear must always come first. The Buster Sword is his honor made tangible, so he will protect that honor as long as he wields it. Zack agrees to help Angeal to fight against Genesis and his forces, as well as keep Angeal's honor intact. As a reward, he gets a lift to Shinra HQ. Hojo is the target. Unfortunately, Genesis's forces don't want to kill him. Apparently, they need him for finding the solution to the degradation process. With the combined strength of Sephiroth, Angeal, and Zack, they fend off the attack and keep Hojo from getting kidnapped. June 8th, 2001. The Turks are assigned to Dr. Rayleigh on protection along with a couple of Shinra troopers. She holds data on the soldier program which Avalanche wants in order to create soldiers of their own. The Turks are told to keep the data safe at any cost, meaning Dr. Rayleigh's life is expendable if need be. But one of the Shinra troopers is determined to keep the doctor safe, and it's none other than Cloud Strife. While they fail to keep the data safe, Dr. Rayleigh is alive due to Cloud's reluctance to sacrifice her. With the data in Avalanche's hands, Fujito begins creating near-immortal beings to fight against Shinra, known as Ravens. Autumn of 2001. Now things are starting to get juicy. Zack, Sung, and 2 Shinra troopers were dispatched on a surveying mission to Nibelheim to investigate an old reactor and potential Genesis and Avalanche sightings. After a helicopter crash, Zack takes point, followed by the one fellow country bumpkin who can hoof rough terrain, Cloud. From this moment on, these two would become best friends. Cloud would hold admiration for Zack's power, status as a soldier, and good-hearted nature, while Zack valued Cloud's bravery, determination, and loyalty. Zack manages to find Hollander and Genesis. Hollander manages to escape because Cloud can't hold on to an overweight scientist. I mean, come on, Cloud, you're a military man! Zack defeats Genesis, who supposedly falls to his death. But if you're familiar with this series, then you know, no body, no kill. Sung and Cloud follow after Hollander and find him in an abandoned spa house. Zack catches up where he must now face his old mentor, Angeal. Of course, Zack doesn't want this fight, so Angeal didn't give him a choice. Angeal wants to die and be with his mother.
Angeal. What happened to honor?
Angeal is defeated. Before his passing, Angeal entrusts Zack with the Buster Sword, as well as his dreams and honor. January 14th and 16th of 2002. After Angeal's death, Hollander is captured and taken to Junon base. Behind the scenes, tensions are rising. See, the Turks are run by a man named Veld or Verdo, depending on translation. Under his leadership, the Turks are failing assignment after assignment. No matter what they do, Avalanche is always one step ahead. Rufus, the VP of Shinra by knowledge and nepotism, suggests that someone is feeding Avalanche information. Oh, he's back, by the way. With Verdo looking like a liability, the Turks are on thin ice. Speaking of which, 2 soldiers are missing, Asai and Sebastian, while on a mission in Icicle. Once the Turks found the base and saved the 2, Shinra prepared all of Soldier for an assault on Avalanche, accompanied by Shotgun. But it was a trap. Asai and Sebastian are brainwashed, forcing Zack to snap them out of it. When the plan to capture 3 soldiers is thwarted, the base is set for self-destruction. Zack and Shotgun escape, but Asai and Sebastian lose their lives. With multiple failures and no leads, Verdo is removed as leader of the Turks. Sung is now in charge, and they all answer to Heidegger, head of security, which lasted like a day because Verdo took command shortly after Avalanche attacked Junon on February 1st. Under Verdo's leadership, the Turks stopped the attack before Heidegger could get the Shinra army involved. It's early summer. Now with Verdo back in command, it's clear that someone inside Shinra is leaking information. While it wasn't Lazard aiding Avalanche, he did help Hollander, so he escapes Shinra before he was fully investigated. Now with the director of Soldier gone, the department is in disarray, during which Zack is ordered to take a vacation to Casa del Sol, with Sisune of the Turks ordered to watch over him as well, stating their vacations overlapped. During his vacation, Avalanche attempts to convince Aerith to join in order to find the Promised Land, but Shotgun and Aerith bonded over flowers a little bit earlier, so by hurting Shotgun, Avalanche lost karma with Aerith.
Go! Get
Get the hell out of here! Your passion, it moves me so. Therefore, I shall concede this day and make my leave. Get bent, clown!
Genesis copies show up to ruin Zack's vacation, proving that Genesis is still alive, considering the copies are as well. Junon is attacked, again, which is probably why the security is so much higher in Final Fantasy VII Original, because this place cannot stop getting attacked. Hollander escapes, and Sephiroth suggests that Genesis is still alive, considering the copies have been popping up everywhere, including the slums. Zack rushes to Sector 5 to make sure Aerith is okay. Upon arrival, he finds an Angeal copy protecting Aerith, leading to a potential possibility that Angeal could also still be alive. After that encounter, Aerith and Zack begin making a flower wagon or two to help Aerith with her new florist business. Meanwhile, monsters have been frequently appearing on Mount Nibel and outside of Nibelheim. The locals attempt to protect themselves, but are human, so they're just straight f***ed. Shinra, knowing full well that Mount Nibel reactor houses dark secrets and experiments such as Genova herself, Turks are dispatched to deal with it. Now, because Nibelheim is such an important location, I'm going with the assumption that Cisne was dispatched to the reactor as opposed to Shotgun or another female Turk. It's stated by Tifa in Traces of Two Past that a female Turk was sent, and considering Cisne's connection to the soldiers sent, I feel Cisne fits best.
Some woman from Shinra showed up and saved me. She was wearing a black suit.
A suit? Was she with the Turks?
Most definitely. I mean, I didn't know it at the time, but looking back on it now, she had to be. I never got her name, though.
You're saying Shinra sent Turks to investigate the reactor instead of soldiers? That's not what we heard back at Calm.
She never told me exactly what she was doing on the mountain that day. All she said was that she was looking for someone who knew Mount Nibel and could act as a guide. I volunteered, and they must have passed word on to Xander. Because when Sephiroth and his team showed up, I was the one the village sent along. If I hadn't gone chasing after Fluffy that day and run into the Turk, there's no way I would have been sent with the investigation team.
Upon Cisne's arrival, dragons and monsters are running amok and preventing her from getting to the reactor. This will require Soldier to get past. Tifa was also present because she was looking for that damn cat Fluffy. Cisne keeps Tifa safe, and they escape from the monster onslaught. Because the gondola from the reactor to town was destroyed, Soldier will need a guide to the reactor. Since Tifa believed Cloud when he said that he was going to make it into Soldier, Tifa volunteers, hoping to see Cloud. Because of the nature of this mission and severity, only the best soldiers are chosen for this mission: Zack Fair and Sephiroth. Cloud is also brought along due to him being a local, as well as 2 other Shinra troopers. The order was given. The team was dispatched to Nibelheim, and we now begin the biggest key point in all Final Fantasy VII, and no, that is not up for debate. This train is now at full throttle, so I hope you're ready for the wreck, because it is going to be glorious. Okay, this is the arc that everyone was waiting for. There are so many ways that the Nibelheim incident has been told, so I'm going to do my best to tell it as coherently and keep it as canon as possible. So bear with me. For all my babies getting into the series for the first time, this will be a hell of a spoiler if it wasn't clear already. In Final Fantasy VII Original and now Rebirth, Cloud tells the entire party of this incident through the perspective of a first-class soldier. But as I've just spent the last 40 minutes explaining, Cloud was, and always has been, a Shinra infantryman. He was not strong enough to undergo Soldier's procedures, so he never made it in despite his best efforts. It was Zack who was the first-class soldier accompanying Sephiroth in Nibelheim. With that being said, you will see footage of Cloud in Zack's place and vice versa. I apologize for the disclaimer, but I just want no confusion. Let's begin. The group arrives in Nibelheim. Cloud keeps his helmet on the entire time he's in Nibelheim because he feels such shame for not making it into Soldier. He can't look anyone in the eye, let alone Tifa, who was looking for him. Imagine her disappointment when a spiky black-haired man is here instead of a spiky blonde-haired man. Cloud still manages to visit his mother, Claudia. He even invites Zack to join them for dinner one night. Zengun, Tifa's master, is present as well to check up on her. Meanwhile, Sephiroth looks out at Nibelheim and feels a sense of familiarity, like he's seen this mountain range before. I wonder why. The following morning, the crew are accompanied by Tifa as their guide to the Nibelheim reactor. And because Sephiroth is a big hero, almost like Superman in the world, one of the locals pleads for a picture of him. And so Sephiroth, Tifa, and Zack take a picture to memorialize a time where things were great and everything wasn't on fire. Zack takes point to clear out the monsters and things go by well, until the bridge to the reactor snaps, sending everyone plummeting down the mountain to the river. Unfortunately, one of the Shinra troopers did not survive, probably because he wasn't even given a name. But luckily, Sephiroth and Zack are ridiculously strong, so they managed to make it to the reactor regardless of the detour. Because the reactor's secrets would bury Shinra with their unethical practices, Cloud is tasked with keeping Tifa safe outside while Zack and Sephiroth enter the reactor. Sephiroth begins piecing things together but is interrupted by Genesis. Genesis tells Sephiroth his origins like a smug asshole, and then has the audacity to then ask Sephiroth for some of his S cells, which house pure Genova genetic code. He thinks Sephiroth can stop his degradation. Then Sephiroth has the coldest line.
Whether your words are lies created to deceive me, or the truth that I have sought all my life, it makes no difference. You will rot.
That's some cold shit.
Sephiroth then made his way to the Shinra Manor, the beginning of his very existence. Upon discovery of a secret laboratory, he begins reading all the research on the Genova project. I can imagine it's like your parents telling you how you were conceived in excruciating detail, times 10.
So we go over, we start talking, things get a little hot and heavy, and I realize, all right, I'm getting ready to drop the hog. Dad! I don't even know what that means, but please don't say it again. What, are you gay now? What happened to you?
Sephiroth spent 7 days poring over every document, with the light never going out. On the 7th day, he accepted his Genova side and threw away his humanity. Zack came down, attempting to convince Sephiroth to get some damn sleep, but Sephiroth needed to see his mother first. But before he left, he set fire to the village and slaughtered the majority of the town. From the mayor to Cloud's mother, no one was safe. And this is why sleep is important. Zengun and Zack attempted to save whoever they could, but Cloud got injured and can only watch in horror as Sephiroth laid waste to his home. Brian, Tifa's father, chased Sephiroth to the top of Mount Nibel. Tifa followed shortly behind. Brian was cut down by Sephiroth and left his sword behind. Tifa, having witnessed her father's death, attempted to kill Sephiroth with his own sword, only to receive a life-threatening cut from her clavicle to her lower chest. Zack confronts Sephiroth, but despite Zack's impressive strength and abilities, can't match up to Sephiroth. Our heroes defeated, Sephiroth is now face to face with Genova, and here is where purple materia plays a key role. You see, Cloud has an independent materia in his possession when he recounts the Nibelheim Incident, preemptive, giving the wielder an increased rate of preemptive attacks. Translation, getting the drop on enemies, which he uses to stab Sephiroth along with the Buster Sword before Sephiroth even knew he was there. Cloud attends to Tifa, but Sephiroth somehow survived being stabbed with a 70.5-inch length sword, leaving Cloud to finish the job.
Sephiroth!
Which didn't go as planned. Being held up by Sephiroth, Cloud manages to reverse the situation onto Sephiroth by sheer force of will. He then throws Sephiroth into the reactor, sending Sephiroth to his death. But as I've said before, no body, no kill. The Turks are assembling, and Hojo is on his way. Zengun arrives at the reactor to get Tifa out of there before Shinra gets any funny ideas. He takes Tifa to Corel in search of a doctor. Cloud and Zack, on the other hand, pass out from their battle with Sephiroth. It would not wake up for another 5 years. As of October 2002, Zack Fair and Cloud Strife are declared killed in action. And thus concludes the Nibelheim Incident of the Crisis Saga. And I'm still not done. But I am taking a short break from this series to play Final Fantasy VII Rebirth on my Twitch channel at twitch.tv/GraySupernova. If you want to see this mega dork who's consumed nearly every piece of Final Fantasy VII lore lose his marbles as he hyper-analyzes every moment in detail, tune in. Stream will start February 29th at 10:30 a.m. because I support physical discs and need to pick it up first. Don't forget to like the video or maybe comment your favorite little tidbits because I'd love to read it. Thank you all so much for the support. I never expected this much reception, and I don't take it for granted. See you all at the stream.